The philosophy for reviews on this channel has always been to look at games that are on the fringe. There's a bit of a pluck a random game off the shelf mentality going on to more deeply explore what's out there. That's why you won't find anything like Mario mentioned too often on this channel. There's plenty of other channels for that. Aquanaut's Holiday, released in 1995 by Art Inc., squarely fits that principle. It's a game that's very different. There's no enemies, no weapons, no pertinent objectives. You simply hop in your sub and explore the big blue. Those in the biz call it an underwater simulator. While I've owned Aquanaut's Holiday for a few years now, my knowledge of it actually goes back 20 years to a several paragraph long review I read in a games magazine. It intrigued me as a kid, and it's just one of those things that's stuck around in the voids of my brain ever since. While it did see release in power regions in North America, it's a Japanese game through and through. This is prudent since my partner bought it for me from the famous Super Potato while on holiday in Japan. Any excuse to use my NTSC-J PlayStation. In Aquanaut's Holiday, you play as, quote, the world's foremost marine explorer. Bet he never thought he'd get his own game. Basically, you're the cream of the crop in the field and are internationally famous for your contributions to the marine environment. These achievements have their toll, however, and you're washed out. So, when a cruisy assignment to explore an unsurveyed portion of the ocean pops up, you jump at the chance. There's no deadlines or external interference. The only objective is to explore at your own pace and build a reef. Utilizing a sub called the Holiday, the game immediately plops you in. There's not really a cutscene or anything like that. Straight away, you're floating around in the water near a seafloor base. Because of this, the manual is required reading. Not only do you need it to know what to do, but because the controls are as unconventional as the gameplay. Otherwise, you can cruise out in any random direction and start exploring. There's a massive environment in Aquanaut's Holiday, and it's totally up to you where you'd like to start. You will pass through a bare area first. There's a reason for this we will soon get into, but before no time at all, you'll begin to encounter specimens of the sea. There's all sorts. Fish, sharks, turtles, whales, uncategorized. But everything coexists and nothing will attack. Not like you'd have a method of defense even if they did. Intriguingly, the rear R buttons on the controller are used to create sounds at different pitches. These communicate with the wildlife and can evoke reactions, although in my experience, most of our gilly friends would rather give the silent treatment and continue on with their business. As far as I understand, attempts at interactions score you ocean brownie points. These contribute to reef building, which we'll delve into soon. Another way to score these ocean brownie points is to explore. While the seabed does change a fair bit, at least in colour as per technical restrictions, there are locations of interest too. While these are quite difficult to find, they're a bit wacky and do act as a kind of reward for continued exploring. Once you've discovered somewhere that you might want to return to, you can plop a buoy, which the game calls a launch point. To use this system, you'll need to access a menu. Be warned though, this isn't a pause menu. There isn't one since it's not necessary. Nothing can happen if you stay still. Anyway, what appears like a pause menu actually takes you back to the base, so use it cautiously if you don't want to lose your spot in the ocean. Here, you can view a map that shows what you've explored. You can also jump to the location of a buoy, of which 256 can be launched. Other than a few general settings, in this menu you can also build a reef. Remember that blank area at the start near the base? That's where the reef will go, making many marine species happy. Gaining those brownie points I mentioned before will unlock blocks that are used to construct the reef. You can choose different colours and stack them as you wish. Once they're installed, you can physically swim around the area and witness the amount of sea life you've attracted. It's the closest thing Aquanaut's Holiday has to an endgame. One sole component missing is a minimap. Since you can't view the map without losing your location unless you launch a buoy, it makes keeping track of where you've already been as you're exploring difficult. I could cruise around for hours not knowing I'm going around in circles. The terrain doesn't change that dramatically. Frequent pop-up hinders this too, although that's more of a hardware issue. On that note, the graphics are basic, but the enormous environment shouldn't be discounted. The models of the wildlife and location are detailed and pleasant, but overall the game does feel quite empty. Much like most of the real ocean, I suppose. On launching the game, you can also choose to view the game through an over window for an authentic experience, because why not? As for the audio, the music is dramatic. I'm not sure how else to explain it. It's a bit bizarre at times with lots of moody electro and weird sounds mixed in. Very 90s alternative. The manual encourages you to imitate the music with your sub sounds, although my attempts at this didn't result in much. I love the idea of all of this, but I do have to admit being a bit bored at times. The game's lack of action eventually does get a bit grinding. It is addictive to just keep on keeping on though. I kept thinking, okay, I've had enough, but the notion of let's just see what's over that next ridge keeps the steam pumping for a while. It is relaxing as intended too, there's no arguing that. It was nice to sit there with a glass of wine on these warm summer nights I'm currently experiencing and just explore. I couldn't do it indefinitely, but I do see the appeal. Maybe it's just not the best for Western audiences. Most other reviews I read from English writers were negative, which is a shame. With so much choice these days, why not try something out of the ordinary? I guess it was different back then in the 90s, and as such, the several sequels released were Japanese only. I wouldn't call Aquanaut's Holiday a bad game. Ultimately, it does achieve what it sets out to do, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But if you keep that in mind, I do recommend giving it a go. If I was a 90s games magazine, I would class it as rental friendly.